Alright, so Slip is here, back with another Modern League with Esper Brain Control. And this deck is very similar to the one we played last time. You will notice, if you saw those videos, two changes. One, last time we were running a Saram's main deck. So, like, Saram's is cool. It's cool with Bet Call. It's cool with a number of things. It's great with Brain in a Jar, right? So you can, like, 1-mana Ruined Halo at instant speed off of Saram's, right? From Jar. That's crazy. That's crazy. Ruined Haloing in response to Valakut. You're living the dream. At the same time, I just really don't like the card. I think it's just much worse than Jar overall in this deck. Like, for what this deck wants to do, I think Saram's is a lot worse than Jar. Now, that's not to say there aren't situations where I want it. There are plenty of situations where I want a copy of Saram's. But I think that those situations aren't really, like, prevalent enough in my experience playing this deck in the current meta, at least on Moto, that I really want the card at all. So there was one main deck, we cut it. There was also a Negate main deck. And I had cut that at some point recently in just like playing around, because I go through a lot of versions here, for a 4th Esper Charm. I wasn't totally sold on a 4th Esper Charm playing it, but it was good. But I think we don't quite want that much dig kind of effect, even though the discard can be great. I think 3 Esper Charm, it really feels like the right number here. And Peer helps us kind of like even out across the instants and sorceries we have in general. So I think this Peer, I think we can get away with 3. So I cut the main deck Negate. And I like Negate. I was still running 3 in the 75. I was running a 3rd one in the sideboard. And, you know, I like to have stuff to bring in against like Adnaz and things like that. And I was talking to somebody else who plays this deck a lot on paper, and he suggested Muddle, which I hate this card, right? Because it's really awkward when our deck is very mana intensive and instant intensive. So transmuting for 3 mana on our own turn is a very, very late game play usually, right? We need like 7, 8 mana to pull this off. So there are certain situations where you can just straight transmute Muddle for a combo piece and go off the next turn. That's fine. Or like turn 4, you can just Muddle for Bet Call and fuse it, right? Against like Jund, that would be fine, given the right circumstances. But overall, it's like really awkward, and I've always found it frustrating. However, since it doubles as a negate a lot of the time, except against Planeswalkers basically, and Blood Moon, since it doubles as a negate, I decided to try it in place of that negate. Now, we'll get to the sideboard in a second, but there are other like things we can transmute for besides Jar and Beck, even though those are good things. For example, like Dredge, right? If we find ourselves in a position where transmuting for a Snapcaster Mage to get an extra surgical extraction is going to put us way ahead, like it might be nice to draw this model. Regardless, the other thing I did was, so we had a negate, this is now the negate, we had a Srams, that's now a 2nd Supreme Verdict. So this is partly like an adaptation to the meta I'm seeing. I was finding myself kind of missing 2 main deck Verdict. Verdict is just such a good card. I don't think I want 3. In the right meta, you would want 3, but I think, you know, on Moto right now or in a really large event, I just like, you know, you can't metagame against everything. I probably wouldn't play 3 for the 3 Verdicts. But 2 main deck seems to be treating me fairly well. Sideboard, slight difference here. There is, first of all, there's no Sarams. Totally gone from the deck. May or may not last. I don't know. Cutting it for now. Basically, I cut that Sarams for a core Firewalker. You can think of it that way. So we now run 3 of these as an extra hedge against the burn matchup because you're always going to face burn. There's always some burn player. Poor guy. And you want to stomp him, right? And we need our help in that matchup. It's not good. It's not good at all. So 3 core Firewalker plus the muddle the mixture to transmute for it kind of gives us a little. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to like add an effective copy main deck and then one in the sideboard in a certain way, but I don't know, it's good. Also, I think in the last video there was an Anguished Unmaking, and I mean that card, I don't know, I just kind of done with it. So I decided to put in an Elspeth since Srams was helping us in certain big mana matchups, like specifically Eldrazi Tron, really. Srams was like a card that I kind of wanted to draw there just to fuse, especially, you know, since they have Pithing Needle and shit like that. But I just decided to play Elspeth, like hardcasting Beck, just Beck, not Call, not Beck Call, just Beck. And then plussing Elspeth is like, you know, you just drew a 2 mana Ancestral at sorcery speed. Like, that's okay. That's fine. And we have a third verdict also. I do want 3 in the 75. There are just some matchups where it's such a blowout. Like, I don't know. I don't mind. There's plenty of affinity still running around. That's okay. Otherwise, sideboard has not changed much. I'm still finding Surgical to be the right number. I've played Dredge several times. 3 times in the last couple weeks. And I think I'm 2-1 against it. And the Surgical was good. Like, I was drawing it enough. The deck's slow enough now. Surgical was combining with other things we did. It was okay. So that's the deck. We're gonna see how it does. Hopefully we get a good set of pairings here. Not good in the favorable sense, but good in the like meta relevant sense. So I'll see you for match 1.